Okay.
Nataraj. So I have a lot, I've been contemplating this idea of as the inner, so the outer, and then the other side of that, the outer, so the inner. I have a lot of outer chaos right now in my physical environment. And I thought, oh, I'll keep it separate. The outer is the outer. It doesn't touch the inner. Very difficult. So, so I'm just trying to contemplate and work with this idea of, can I bring the inner to outer physical construction chaos, and finding the balance instead of rejecting it or trying to keep it out. I'm not sure the question, but just working with this idea of inner is outer, outer is inner, and how to find the balance. Thank you.
Very good. It's what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, this is our um, it's our predicament, outer and inner. Inner predicament, outer predicament. Predicament of outer versus inner. Well, the short answer, of course, is that the very moment you're in total acceptance of everything, then the world becomes magic. You don't really even have to pretend to enjoy the chaos or the tumult, but know that you're okay. And everybody's had the experience of really unanticipated radical beauty uh, happening. But it's in those moments of total acceptance. And I think that I think it's a mistake to pretend we don't feel the way we feel. Uh, I think it's a mistake to pretend to be outwardly happy or even inwardly happy, trying to convince ourselves um, that it's not unpleasant. I think this creates a dissonance between you and yourself. And dissonance really is the friction that causes the unhappiness. So, to pretend to be happy when you're not is there's a bit of a self-betrayal in it, isn't there? So what's the mix then? So you're having your bathroom remodeled. Now this can play as a metaphor. Uh, not to mention high class problems. But this can serve as a metaphor your house being remodeled. So there can be some gentle, compassionate acknowledgement to your own self that it's unpleasant, it's not your preference. But simultaneously, no, it's fine. And also, it will pass. And somehow, in this posture of total acceptance of what is, that acknowledge that you wish it were different, and also know that it's fine. You're okay. And so, I don't know. Could we call it grin and bear it? I don't know. I think we could. I think we could. Bear it in the same way that Swami Shivananda says, bear insult, bear injury, the injury of your remodeling. And maybe at first we develop something that we might call tolerance. I'm not so fragile after all. Much sturdier, much more supple than you imagine. Not so fragile after all. This, of course, is, for the most part, this is on the other side of the deep healing. You know, this is the dawn after the dark night, let's say. So it wouldn't really apply to somebody who's really still very much identified in the suffering. But something good to lean into. And then there's this play of inner and outer, a call and response. It's a call and response, a dialogue. You and the world. And in the world you can see yourself, and in yourself you see that you are projecting the world. You've heard it said, the world is the best guru. I think so. It'll show you everything that you think you are. And this is the thing that was so strong in the silence preceding satsang, which was personal desire is the very thing that keeps heaven at bay. We've talked about this. Me and mine is the very thing that occludes the perception of God. This orientation towards the egoic self is It just turns down the magic. The moment that you become okay just being as it is, then the world can come. Yes. Yeah. Because romantic desire is one of the strongest in us, right? For so many reasons. It's always a great metaphor for us in both the challenges and the sacred, illuminated space of beingness, I guess we could say. But this is something that I think is really important to lean into, which is that you are not as fragile as you think you are. I remember some years ago, I had through a sort of a profound and spontaneous shift, became very, very sensitive to energy and to the world, and it was not pleasant for me at this time. And I found it exhausting to be out in the world and to be aware of so much that was happening around me in the hearts and minds of others. It was really challenging. And it wasn't really it wasn't really in the style of my personality, but I was desperate, and so I got into all kinds of rituals and incenses and crystals trying to protect myself from energies. And it has some positive effect. I found it to be helpful. However, one day in meditation on my couch in Bethesda, the question came, if I am the invulnerable, immutable self, then what is it that I'm protecting? And it was kind of, it felt daring, because it was a real felt sense. I would go out in the world and I would feel all of it was almost like I could smell the sadness, the desperation, the anger that was just in the air. And it was really very uncomfortable. So it felt so real to me. And so to think, what is it that I'm protecting? If it's true what the sages say, then the defense against it itself feeds the energy of the running and the hiding. The hiding creates the monster. The hiding creates the monster and creates the wall that you're hiding behind. But the hiding precedes the threat, invites it. Running invites the chase. Chasing invites the running. Huh? Is it true in your own experience? You chase something and it seems to run from you. You run from something, it seems to chase you. You hide from something and it seems to try to seek you out. Any parent knows that when it's too quiet, when it's too quiet in the house, they better go figure out what their children are up to. Huh? So in this stillness, not running, not chasing, not hiding, in this stillness and a total acceptance of all that is in your external environment, all that's happening around you, the cacophony, the chaos. There's so much of it, isn't there? Good Lord. It's so animated. Mostly by personal fear and personal desires. But it's so animated. But you are actually strong enough, I would say simultaneously or synonymously, empty enough to be invulnerable to it. Much less fragile than you know. And also in total acceptance of your inner environment. This means your thoughts, the thoughts even that are in reaction to the external environment. The body, what's happening in the body. Every decade brings more of that. So all of the internal environment, meaning your thoughts, the physical sensations, and the emotional. And the felt sense of I. And to be in total acceptance of that. This is really important. Really, all I'm describing in everything that I've said here is simply soften and allow. And in this, the world will change. Your perception of the world will definitely change. And the world itself will change. It seems outrageous maybe, doesn't it? But it will. It takes more time than I think we'd like. The world, the physical manifestation, is so gross, obtuse, cumbersome, slow. It's okay like this. It's good actually for us that it's like this. My goodness. Can you imagine if personal desires and fears actually came into the manifest as quickly as they came into the mind? No, I don't think that would be good at all. So this slowness is a gift, a sort of a governor, built into the system. So you can be frustrated with how slow the amelioration of the world will be, but also grateful of how slow it is to manifest. Somebody probably knows the quote from Bible, from Jesus better than me, but You will do better things than I. You will say, mountain move, and the mountain will move. Is this just poetry? Yeah. So we can be very grateful that we're not busy disappearing mountains. There was this, probably most of you are familiar if you're not, there really is this wonderful lecture series by Ram Dass in New York, and they're called the Be Here Now Talks, I think is what they're called, and they're marvelous. And one little segment has stood out for me. In one of these, outside, there's a jackhammer, I believe, and a fire truck goes by. And he just says, everybody pause and just let all of that inside of you. Yeah. And feel the ecstasy of jackhammer, of siren. Huh? Same jackhammer, same siren. One response is, and the other is, same world. Totally different interpretation. So, truly, in the remodeling, where there's noise and dust and inconvenience, and people in your house, allow it. Be. Just allow it. Just be with it. More and more, more and more. The emptier we become of this me and mine, of our aversions, the more the world rushes in to embrace us, to love us. Now, this I think is probably an obvious distinction, but maybe it's important to say, at least because it came to mind. There are things in the world that nothing that you shouldn't accept, but so many things that you shouldn't endure. Let's see, how can I say this? You can be totally accepting of violence and hatred, but not suffer the abuse. Even in the sacred forgiveness, you forgive somebody that has wronged you, that you have wronged, it doesn't mean you become best friends. It means you no longer hold a grudge. It means you're no longer suffering from your own resentments. But it doesn't mean you're meeting for tea. You're not trying to prove anything. You simply are trying to be free of suffering, from resentment. Really, probably the best way I've heard this expressed is detach with love, but detach. Huh? Okay. Jehonathan. It's okay?
Thank you.
Ah, very good.
This detaching with love. So love, I believe in the last or recent satsang, you either said in the chat or in the group, is not an illusion. So we did have the exchange about the three positions, the experiencing the position, and we've just described Ranjani had, Ram Dass did as well, how we can have an experience and we can experience different sides of it. And what I would like to lead to is, if it's acceptable, to read a very small bit of, the person that's there in Rishikesh, his experience in tapas, where his guru has come to him and basically said, you are experiencing these things 2 to 3 years in with your body, and they may be attractive, going to distant planets and seeing sages, but if you become attracted to these things, you're going to have to come back to these places after existing in the world. Whereas if you are not, and it is he who has described two things to me I just wanted to offer briefly. The very first time that I meditated with him, I was in 200 people in a Zoom call, and they asked if you wanted to ask a question. So people do. You don't see that. They choose. And I was chosen out of maybe 6 or 9 people to ask a question. So I asked if I was doing meditation right. He said, you are. And then I said, can I ask a follow-up? And the person before had done a follow-up, and he said, well, not as long as them. And I'm thinking, oh, how do I ask this? But it was his response to me, from basically saying, you're recommending not, we don't all have to sit in tapas, but we should meditate an hour a day. This very simple way that he describes it. But can we, and I was going to describe meditate while we're talking in this conversation and while we're driving in the car and everything. And he just interrupted me and said, yes. He's looking right in the Zoom screen like this. And in my body, I felt you don't have to do this with me because you already know. And there was a meditation that occurred at that time. And I swore someone was in the house with me. I had to open my eyes. I had a sense of presence, and there was no one in the house. And then I closed my eyes again. It was just the cats. And I swear I could feel the heat of a person's forehead on my forehead and hands touching my shoulders. And I was startled. So I opened my eyes again and there was no one. Well, the person who had introduced me to him sent me a message after this and said, "What did you ask him? He never answers in a single word." And when he heard it, he said, "You need to send him an email. He'll respond." And he did within 2 weeks. And he said, "Yes, I, told you that you can be meditating like this." And then he wrote at the bottom, but I didn't ask him about that experience. I didn't even describe it. He simply said, "Did you not sense me there with you?" And my body has this is 3 years ago in January. And I still sometimes doubt that had happened. And I guess what I'm saying is I have the experience of everything we've just described before, of hearing my partner in my office chewing potato chips very loudly, and it is extraordinarily distracting. So I'm going to turn that into this jackhammer and siren, right? And just love him enjoying these potato chips. I'm going to be the potato chips that he's so deliciously crunching. I just find it fascinating that this person said that it's all illusion. He's not asking us to detach from the world at all, or actually do anything at all other than to sit silently for enough time, every day, while at the same time saying you essentially don't necessarily need to do it all at once for 1 hour, because you can be building that up. In other words, you didn't miss your meditation at any point because you're already meditating. It's that presence in every moment. And so it does kind of answer itself. Maybe I'll just sort of leave it there for the group because I've been holding the mic a little long. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's really stories like this, the anecdotes, experiences like this are important because it affirms for us we have no idea what's happening. I mean, who's had this experience in meditation where you think if you open your eyes, you might be somewhere different than when you close them, or there are different things happening in the room that you're just sort of a fugue state. But then you open the eyes and it is as it was. A dog's sense of smell is so much more powerful. The range of perception of a dog's nose and a human's nose. Or the sense of time and space for a fly. Do you know that for a fly's sense of time, that the human hand trying to swat it is like this? The experience based on sense perception is so limiting. And so this is why meditation can be so beneficial, because we move into more and more subtle dimensions, detached from the gross sense experiences being the predominant way that we perceive world and self. And other subtler, we might call magical or miraculous things begin to emerge as our minds become more subtle. increasingly attenuated of the revolving door of the same thoughts and stories over and over again. And the hearts become emptied of anger and jealousy and hatred. And the world reveals itself. Huh? And you think, it's normal for us to think that this master came to you in a moment, and that it was that moment from then to then in that window of time, and that it's not true now. I tell you, it's true now. You know, Swami Satchidananda spoke about this a few times, sparingly, but he would often be, they call it bilocating, peering through the veils of space and time. But he said he very often was totally unaware of it himself, his personal self. He had no knowledge of it. And then there were moments where he did, because he's a master, like this Swami in Rishikesh that you're talking about. You also are that. Before the limitations of your own perception of self and the limitations you've placed on the world through sense perception, you also are non-local, preceding space and time. Right here with me. And then there's the other thing that you mentioned, which I think is really important, and it's always good to come back to this, that there is the practice of meditation, taking an hour a day to sit in increasingly relative stillness. And then as the stillness expands, you have a sense that I'm being meditated. And as that expands, you have the sense now of I am meditation. I am meditation before speaking and doing happens, before even thinking. The practice and the fruit are the same. The seed and the fruit are the same. And when we are buffeted by the world and attached through attraction and aversion, the practice of detachment is a wise endeavor. On the recognition that you have never once been attached, you'll see the whole thing is totally absurd. When you really come to, like, so the practice of forgiveness through my favorite Ho'oponopono. So much discipline, so much emotion, so much resistance, so many releases. And then when the forgiveness actually bears fruit, there was nothing there to forgive. It was already forgiven, you could say. That all of the effort was totally unnecessary. But it's only from there that it's unnecessary. So you mentioned tapas as well, and it's a subtle topic, but Tapas is, let me just say this very simply. Tapas is, most importantly, accepting and receiving your karmas. Again, I'm not a theologian, but it seems akin to what Christians call atonement. You, of course, you, Jonathan, will like this. Atonement meaning at-one-ment, the process of coming back to the one. But so many sages advise that we should not chase tapas. You accept it willingly when it comes. The story of Job comes to mind. This is a subtle topic, and we could use many satsangs. But I don't think any here are such intense yogis that they're seeking out discomfort. Nobody's wearing horsehair shirts or flagellating. Or staying in a painful asana for hours. And then the love that is not illusion is the love that doesn't have an opposite. The love that is not illusory is the love that is truth. Truth standing not in opposition to falsehood, light not standing in opposition to darkness. It is the one without a second. And out of this, called love, called light, called truth, all things arrive, all dualities arise out of this love. And this, as a human, you can come to taste it. Yogananda says, trade your salt for sugar. The tongue of personal desire running around looking for this and that flavor of salt. It isn't until we stop with that then the palate is refined, more discerning. So there's always this dance in everything that we will give voice to in satsang. Nothing that can be said is true. Everything that can be said can be debated, but this is not the purpose. That there is the experience of the relative, and And this must be acknowledged and honored. It's one of the great perils of premature non-dualism. It's not seen as aversion, as rejection. Premature Advaita. Stuck in not that. A permanent state of neti. It's useful along the way, neti, and not this, not that. It's very useful. But as long as that posture remains, there's some tension, there's some dissonance. It's what the sages say when they mean, I'm pointing to the moon. Means the finger is not the object. The words are always trying to point away from, point toward light. And so debate is essential until it's not. It's an important process too, dissecting and parsing, categorizing, understanding, exploring vocabulary, exploring metaphor. Exploring archetypes. Astrology even. What sign are you? What is your horoscope? But by knowing it, you can then discount it as you. And the 12 signs collapse into the sun. So there's a sense of a vague understanding, at least in broad strokes, of the lotus of the world, the yantra. And then coming to the center, meaning no longer moving out from center, it begins to fold in on itself. And then I remains. In this way, you could also say the 12 signs of astrology, the 12 disciples of Jesus. The light of the sun illuminates all of the planets, everything. And remember this from past exploration. If there is no object to reflect the light of the sun, does not mean dark. The light is there, it's just imperceivable by the lack of reflection. You see? Drink this in. This alone can tell you everything you need to know. And that light of sun precedes sun itself. you know, the words would have to be pointing towards something, because without that, they're complete nonsense. The light of sun precedes sun. I'll add this. Black hole. Not even light escapes, yes? And it's called black. But you see, if light can't escape black hole, then from inside black hole, it must be very bright, yes? Brighter than bright. I'm not an astrophysicist, obviously. But it's called black hole. And you yourself, in your meditation, will find the light of self in the darkness. It always reminds me of the cartoon Jiminy Cricket inside the belly of the whale, inside of the Leviathan. And he strikes a match. Andrew, let's see, where are you? You got it?
When you say the light of the sun precedes the sun, is this another way of saying the primary eye is unseen?
To be one without a second. Means seer. Seer is not seen. Okay. The seer is, as is. The I alone exists. As existence. Means I cannot know itself. I is, but there is no subject-object relationship. There's no reflection. There's no contrast, no time and space, meaning no experience, no narrative, no arc of experience. And to the mind entrenched in duality, in the I sense that is subject-object relation, it might sound horrible, unattractive. And in a way, it's to that one, it's true. It's true. It actually, in a funny way, it makes no sense that anyone should seek enlightenment. It is no more practical than a moth to a flame. But a moth has never been so happy. There's something unique to the human experience where there is a simultaneity of a layered sense of I-ness. So, Andrew, what now?
Happiness. I did recognition of what you're saying. I feel happiness, and that affirms it for me. Thank you. Yes.
And I think you and I had an exchange recently, exploring the frequency of what we might call disassociation versus detachment. Disassociation has a sense of relief in it. And it can be progress, but be very mindful of explore the difference between disassociation and detachment. There's always a subtle aversion and denial and hiding in disassociation. And detachment is this alert, clear, we could say happiness, but it's a happiness that is non-causal and has no opposite. I mean, no word really works. Joy, bliss, none of them really work. And nothing is lost. Maybe that's not quite right. Nothing of intrinsic value is lost. Many of the sages compare it to gold versus gold jewelry. If you melt down a gold bracelet, you still have the gold. Bracelet is nothing more than name and form, and of no value other than the value assigned to it by the mind. You see? So, Andrew is a gold bracelet, beautiful and can be appreciated for its beauty and its uniqueness. What an incredible jeweler made this really beautiful bracelet. But ultimately, the intrinsic value is in the gold itself. Or a clay pot. And this is first coming into contact with this I that precedes even mind. In a bit like Yehonathan was talking about, some subtle sense, there's something there I can't quite touch. Just being available to receive that. Nothing of inherent value is lost. Nothing is rejected. And there is the work to be done to get to the place where you realize that the work was ridiculous. practice of meditation, of forgiveness, whatever it is your practice, you prescribe your own. But you must do it, as you know, I always say, you decide what it is and then you follow through on your own decision. And smile. It really is. It's like jet fuel to your practice, to every practice. Every yogasana teacher, every hatha teacher always says, and now let's take it to the advanced level, just add a smile. And it's true. Next time you're in headstand, smile. Just a little one. And not for anyone else. You have something? Or it's come and gone?
I mean, I'm sure I could find it, but...
Nice to see you.
I'm happy to see you, and I'm really happy to hear you, Nataraj. I don't have it's not a question. I meant to call you at some point, like privately, because it's like a really big part of my process right now. I'm coming to a very strange, very seemingly dangerous place, emotionally at least, where I'm feeling a radical lack of motivation, a radical lack of motivation and ambition. The way I've been feeling lately, it's hard to imagine taking part of anything in the world. I cannot imagine how to do it right now. In fact, I am somehow, in a very gentle, subtle way, I am actively disconnecting myself to the people and activities that have kept me anchored in the world, like in the world. So I don't know what the question is. As I said, I meant to reach out privately, but I found some time now, and I joined the Satsang, and now I'm here, so why not? And maybe it could help some other one from the group. So yeah, thank you.
Self-honesty is really the great imperative at this point, Daniel. This can be something beautiful for you, or it could be something not so beautiful for you. And the self-honesty will be the thing to help you navigate through. When one, in their proper spiritual understanding, their proper spiritual maturation, comes to see the world will not fulfill the promised desire. And then once you see that it doesn't work, that it makes sense, then you would begin to withdraw. This will happen for each one. The timing of it and how you engage with it matters greatly. When it comes to detachment, it can be wise to do it slowly and to do it with great love and compassion. Where you have the ability to do that. When we are identified with, in relationship to the world, all ambition comes from fear and desire, and we are animated by personal fears and personal desires. And so what happens when you see through this Maya, ambition dies. Goes through a process of dying. It can be wise to, at this phase, be in an ashram. And an ashram, or deeply connected into a church with some understanding of what's happening with you, provides an energetic support that you simply marinate in, creates a stability for you. Also, a spiritual teacher can be extremely helpful at this point. The guru here is like the raft that you cling to in the ocean of samsara, of some ambitions will remain, and you see them. But know this, you've nothing to prove, and also these ambitions will fade away, will reveal a different way of being and being in the world than you have known previously. A marionette doll pulled by the puppet master. Did those birds just hatch? Well, clearly not. Controlled by the puppet master. When the strings are cut or dissolve, what happens to the puppet? It crumples to the floor. No longer moved by conditioning. I mean, this is a process. They go one first, then the other. It's a long process usually. Crumple to the floor, and now one needs to find a different inspiration. Previously inspired by ambition, which is really the fuel of personal fear and desire, now needs to find a new way to ambulate. Honestly, I think if you want to know everything you need to know about this, watch the cartoon Pinocchio. Because it's inevitable. The karmas, the attachments, they will slowly, more slowly than you will than you will know at first. I want to say this: don't celebrate too soon. There are miles to walk. And first, even learning how to walk. So there's this sense of grief also. The identity is bound in the attachments. You know yourself by your fear and desire, and when the fear and desire and the ambition itself falls away, you will not know who you are, and there will be a sense of grief. And you'll wonder, how will I exist? What will I do? Who am I? This you must know. And then, so when that falls away, there's a new source that will inspire you, that will arise through and out of you, that will give you it will be a new way of thinking, a new way of speaking, and a new way of acting. in a world that is also new. It's very confusing time, and it takes time. And know this, just like a human child out of the crib, crawling, standing, walking, all of the stages of human development, they are reflected in the stages of spiritual development. And you will make so many mistakes. And if you're paying attention, you'll learn, and you'll see how it is now. It's different. And the world continues to go about its business just like it always has. And there's so much to be said about this, but little by little, you make your way. You pay very close attention. From here, Daniel, you navigate using truth and love as your compass. You find what is true, and you find what is love, and you place yourself at the center of them. And then eventually, after some disciplined practice, truth and love will be the same. In general, there are beautiful examples to the contrary, but in general, the world will not support you in this. And also, the most amazing beings will pop through to say the perfect thing, to just share eye contact, to offer some stability, some teaching. So watch Pinocchio. You thought it was hard being a puppet. Also, you must come to know what it is you want, what you really, really want. You must know that, because so many distractions will come your way, so many invitations into this and that. Single-pointed, increasingly single-pointed focus on the want of wants is essential for your safe transit from where you are to where you're going. When Siddhartha Gautama sits under his Bodhi tree, have you heard? He was a prince, and he was a forest renunciant, a sadhu, supposedly developed all of these incredible mystical powers, these cities, even could control some of his own masters. I don't know. Probably I'm mixing in Hermann Hesse's version. And eventually he renounces renunciation even. And he comes to sit under the Bodhi tree, and Mara comes. and to terrify him and to seduce him, one and the other. Of the two, the seductions are most perilous. You'll make so many mistakes. Just pay attention. Always be cultivating a sense of self-compassion and self-love, but stay disciplined and true to what you want to want. And whatever you need from us, isn't it true? Yeah, whatever you need from us. This is so helpful. As we enter the new and unknown, this is so helpful. I'm so glad that you brought this to Satsang. The one-on-ones are important and precious, it's true. But ultimately, as this matures, and we see we're all aspects of the same one, and no one's question is different from the other. And no response is to you or you or you or you, like this. Thank you. Om. Om. Om.